Welcome to the late 17th century, a time fraught with religious fervor and societal anxieties, in a place known as Salem, Massachusetts. A world where the devout Puritans sought to shape a society based on their strict interpretation of the Bible, where any deviation from their norms was seen as a threat to their way of life. Religious beliefs and societal fears intertwined, creating a potent mix of superstition and paranoia. The fear of the unknown, the dread of the devil's influence, and the terror of witchcraft were all too real for the Puritans. This fear was heightened by the belief in the supernatural, the conviction that Satan was actively working to infiltrate and destroy their godly community. Salem Village, now known as Danvers, was a close-knit community, but not without its tensions. It was a place of political and familial rivalries, of disputes over property and church privileges. These rivalries, coupled with the Puritans' fear of the devil's influence, would create a volatile atmosphere. It's important to note that Salem Village was not an isolated bubble. Outside influences like the end of the King Philip's War brought an influx of refugees into the village, adding to the strain on resources and heightening tensions. This was a community under pressure, grappling with uncertainty and change. Above all, the Puritans believed in the power of confession and the importance of rooting out sin within their community. There was a constant vigilance, a watchful eye over each other's moral conduct, a readiness to call out and punish any perceived transgressions. This was a society on edge, primed for suspicion and quick to accuse. This tense atmosphere, this cocktail of religious fervor, societal tension, and fear of the supernatural, set the stage for one of history's most infamous episodes, the Salem Witch Trials. In the winter of 1692, a spark ignited the kindling of suspicion and fear in Salem. An unremarkable village in Massachusetts was about to be etched into the annals of history, not for its beauty or industry, but for a chilling tale of hysteria and witchcraft. The first accusations of witchcraft came from an unlikely source. A group of young girls, barely out of childhood, were at the heart of it all. Betty Parris and Abigail Williams, the daughter and niece of Reverend Samuel Parris, began to exhibit strange and unexplainable behaviors. Violent fits, screaming, and throwing things around were just the beginning. Soon, other girls in the village began to show similar symptoms. When the local doctor could find no physical cause for these afflictions, a startling conclusion was reached: witchcraft. The girls promptly named 3 women as their tormentors: Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and a slave named Tituba. The accusations against these women, particularly Tituba, played into the existing prejudices and fears of the Puritan society. Tituba, an enslaved woman of South American descent, was an easy target. Her different ethnicity, lower social status, and the exotic stories she shared made her an ideal scapegoat for the Puritan community, already teetering on the edge of paranoia. Then came the confessions. Under intense questioning and the threat of punishment, Tituba confessed to being a witch and weaving spells, further fanning the flames of hysteria. Her confession, filled with vivid accounts of black dogs, red cats, yellow birds, and a tall man dressed in black, was more than enough to convince the community of her guilt and the presence of witchcraft in their midst. Superstition, fear, and a deep-seated belief in the supernatural made the perfect breeding ground for paranoia. As the days turned into weeks, accusations flew thick and fast, turning neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend. What started as whispers of witchcraft soon became a deafening roar of mass hysteria. The spark had indeed ignited a wildfire. As the hysteria grew, so did the trials, each one a spectacle of fear and accusation. The courtroom of the late 17th century was a far cry from what we know today. Evidence was not as we understand it, but a tumultuous mix of testimonials, confessions, and the highly controversial spectral evidence. This spectral evidence was a concept unique to the witch trials, where the accusers claimed to see the apparitions or shapes of the people who were purportedly afflicting them. This form of evidence was a cornerstone of the Salem Witch Trials, and perhaps the most chilling aspect of them. Amidst this frenzy, several figures stood out, both among the accusers and the accused. One such figure was Abigail Williams, a young girl whose wild accusations ignited the spark of paranoia. Her vivid stories of torment and spectral sightings spurred on the trials, her words carrying a weight far beyond her tender years. Then there was Tituba, the enslaved woman from Barbados, who was among the first accused. Under severe interrogation, she confessed to witchcraft, weaving elaborate tales of riding on broomsticks and signing the devil's book. Her confession fueled the fear that a coven of witches was conspiring within Salem. Another key figure was George Burroughs, a former minister of Salem Village. Accused of witchcraft, his trial was significant for the so-called touch test. It was believed that a touch from the witch would stop the victim's fit. When Burroughs touched the accusers during his trial, their fits ceased, sealing his fate. And finally, Rebecca Nurse, a respected and pious elderly woman. Her accusation shocked the community, a clear sign that no one was safe from suspicion. Despite her adamant denial, she was found guilty and hanged, her death becoming a turning point in public opinion. These trials were not impartial examinations of evidence but a theater of the absurd, driven by fear and superstition. A mere accusation was enough to convict, and the methods of interrogation were brutal. Dunking, pressing with heavy stones, and the infamous witch's teat examination were all used in a desperate attempt to uncover the mark of the devil. The accused were often coerced into confession, a confession that paradoxically, while saving them from the gallows, condemned them in the eyes of their community and their God. Those who maintained their innocence were less fortunate, meeting their end at Gallows Hill. As the trials progressed, the list of the accused grew, reaching over 200. From servants to ministers, children to the elderly, none were spared the finger of suspicion. A shared look, a muttered word, or a simple misfortune could land one in the docks, facing the terrifying prospect of the noose. In the throes of hysteria, justice was blinded, leading to tragic ends for the accused. At its peak, the witch trials consumed Salem, but as with all fires, it eventually began to die down. As the trials escalated, the courtroom became a stage for a macabre theater of fear. The hysteria reached its crescendo in the summer of 1792, when 5 people were hanged in a single day, known as the Execution Day. But as the list of the accused grew, so did the skepticism. The trials, initially fueled by fear and superstition, began to face a strong undercurrent of doubt. The turning point came when respected members of society, including the former Salem minister, Increase Mather, voiced his criticisms. Mather's proclamation, "It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than that one innocent person should be condemned," echoed through the community. Simultaneously, the governor's wife was accused of witchcraft, leading Governor Phipps to disallow any further arrests. He also dissolved the court that had been presiding over the trials, casting a harsh light on the spectral evidence that had been so instrumental in the convictions. By May of 1793, the hysteria had substantially subsided. The remaining prisoners were either pardoned, had their charges dropped, or were found not guilty in their trials. The few who were sentenced to death were reprieved by Governor Phipps. It was a clear end to an era of mass hysteria. The aftermath saw a wave of apologies and reparations. The courts declared the trials unlawful, and the leading justice publicly apologized for his role in the proceedings. The day of official humiliation was declared in 1797, during which the community fasted and prayed for forgiveness. The legal system also saw significant changes. Spectral evidence was no longer admissible in court, and the importance of concrete evidence and rational judgment became paramount. It was a lesson learned in the hardest way possible. The flames of hysteria eventually died down, leaving behind a charred legacy of fear and injustice. The Salem Witch Trials, a dark chapter in history, are more than a tale of fear and superstition. They've left an indelible mark on our modern legal system, reminding us of the perils of mass hysteria and the ease with which it can subvert justice. The trials showed us how quickly suspicion can turn neighbor against neighbor, how fear can distort reality, and how innocent people can become scapegoats in times of social tension. These events led to significant changes in legal practices, emphasizing the need for rational procedures and evidence-based judgment. The use of spectral evidence or ghostly testimony was eventually discredited, and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty became a cornerstone of our justice system. The trials serve as a potent reminder of the destructive power of fear and the importance of reason, fairness, and empathy in our collective search for truth. May the lessons from Salem serve as a reminder of the power of fear and the importance of justice and reason in the face of hysteria. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Salem Witch Trials. The lessons we've learned from this grim chapter of history are not just echoes of the past, but guideposts for the present and the future. We encourage you all to delve deeper into the history of Salem and the witch trials, to better understand the forces that can distort our perception of reality and compromise our sense of justice. Let's take these lessons to heart and strive to promote empathy, reason, and fairness in our own lives. If you found this video insightful, Do subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more historical deep dives. Remember, history is not just about the past. It's about understanding our present and shaping our future. Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay rational in the face of fear. Until next time, this is your historical guide, signing off.